Thank you, Nosa. Okay, I have a story to tell you about the time that I had an encounter with a crocodile and a boa constrictor in Liberia, West Africa. We were at Cooper's Beach, and we'd catch a fish, and we would catch the fish by just batting it out of the water and put it on some aluminum foil and with some butter and let it just cook in the sun because the sun was that hot. And I remember it was a dry season and we were really enjoying ourselves, and we had this private beach my boyfriend and I would go to, and nobody was around, absolutely nobody. You had to walk maybe about a mile from where everyone else was, and there was this private little lagoon. We called it our lagoon. And I loved that lagoon. It was so peaceful. It was like becoming a part of nature, like finding Adam and Eve all over again. And so, it was Liberia, and so, we didn't really have to wear clothes or anything like that, so that was no big deal. So we caught our fish and had it baking in the sun, and my boyfriend went to go to the beach and swim, but I wasn't really ready to fight the waves. So I had heard about a really good movie that was going on in America at the time called Jaws, and I had sent off for the book. I had the book finally in my hand, and I was absorbed in this book. I wanted to read this book while we were at this beach. So we had a big inner tube, like from a big truck tire, and I used that as a raft, and I would sit in the raft and just kind of roll around from spot to spot. And I had the book in my hand, and I was reading the book, and I was lying on the inner tube with my behind in the water and my legs spread eagle on the sides of the inner tube. And so I didn't really pay too much attention to my surroundings, and the inner tube was just floating along with me, and I was reading my book, and suddenly I noticed that the water became very cold on my behind. And there's a bear behind, so I noticed it right away, and I looked down, and underneath me there was the lagoon, which was shallow and warm up to this point. I had floated so far towards the underbrush, the jungle, that this lagoon just did a big dip right in the middle of this expanse that actually turned into almost like a river. So here I am in this inner tube, just floating and spinning and reading my book, and I noticed that the warm water that was on my tush became cold all of a sudden. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I looked down, and I noticed that the scenery had changed. I had floated so far inland that I was in a part of the lagoon that was not where I should be, needless to say. And the water had just dipped into a large hole in the bottom, and I looked between the inner tube, and I saw all sorts of fishes and things floating way down, way down, and there were trees overhead, and I said, oh, maybe I should remember that I am in the bush, and I need to be more careful, because I'd heard that previously there had been, some people who had been killed by some wild animals in this area. So I said, well, maybe I need to, begin to get out of here. And then I looked up, and maybe about 20 feet away, I saw a movement, and I looked at it again, and it was a boa constrictor who had just dipped down just enough and was in the path that I was going for, and was obviously waiting for me to come close enough for him to grab me and do whatever. And this was a wild boa constrictor. This was not the little one you see tame in the zoo. This was a huge sucker, maybe about 25 feet long or so. And so I realized that I was in danger. I put the book, and it was the book was maybe about this thick. I took it and I put it in my mouth like this, and I started to turn myself around on my little makeshift inner tube raft and head back towards the shore, where because I was spinning in the thing, and I could see my boyfriend there, and I said, oh, well, let me get back to where I need to be. And so I had the book stuck in my mouth, and I kicked off of this log that was near me, only to find, to my dismay, that it was a crocodile. He began to roll over and over and over, and there were these feet showing, and I said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So there was the crocodile here, and the waves that he made as he spun around made me spin around and around and around and around until... And I was moving closer and closer to the boa constrictor. So I had a choice between this guy or the snake, and I was like, what am I going to do? Well, the first thing first, I bent myself back and pulled myself out of my bottom, at least out of that water, in case the crocodile decided to come back and take a bite. So now I'm backwards on this inner tube like this, with this book stuck in my mouth, but I was spinning around, and I just called for my boyfriend, but I realized I couldn't because the book was in my mouth. Now I'm holding myself out of the water, and with both feet and hands back behind me, and I could not seem to get the book out of my mouth. I was like, trying to push it out. And then I said, okay, well, let me try the hand. But if I took my hand off, then I was off balance, and I could have fallen in the water, and that would have been the end of that. So I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So here I am, upside down, like like an Egyptian figurine or something, and I was trying to push the book out of my mouth. I pushed with my mouth, and finally I saw the crocodile heading back that way, and in a panic I pushed really hard, and the book popped out, landed on my belly, and just the inside of the book, by the way, not the whole thing. My lips were stuck to the cover of the book. So the inside of the book tore away from the rest, from the cover, bounced off of my stomach, bounced off the inner tube, slid down the inner tube, and slid into the water. And meanwhile, I'm getting closer and closer to this boa constrictor, and the crocodile was headed closer and closer to me, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? That was when I saw the crocodile dive, and I looked underneath, and it was beautiful. This book was just opened up, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't find out what happened. The crazy things that happen in your mind when you realize that something is going on that you just really can't control, but your mind does some stupid things like, oh, what will I do? I can't see the end of this book, Jaws. And the crocodile rolled around, and the next thing I know, his mouth just opened up, and he took the book and went completely underneath me to the other side, I guess thinking that he had found something to eat. Well, by this time, I'm maybe about 5 feet away from that snake, and since the crocodile was taken care of, I don't know how I did it. I managed to flip myself over. I did it like a Scooby-Doo on that inner tube, and tore ass for the shore. So it's funny what the things that run through your mind when you think you're about to die. And the only thing, two things ran through my mind was I would never get to see the end of that book, but it was a very good thing that we wouldn't have to explain to my mother how I wound up being either eaten by a crocodile or eaten by a boa constrictor. But the bad thing that bothered me was that would happen with no clothes on. I mean, that was the most embarrassing thing for me, that I would be found dead with no clothes on. Go figure.